It started like any other ride. I was going for a short errand within New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. The man who picked me up seemed harmless at first, quiet, maybe a little older than expected, but nothing about him screamed danger. I was just grateful for a lift. It was getting late, and the air had turned sharp with cold. We made small talk. He asked me where I was going, and I told him. He nodded, started driving, and everything seemed fine, until he suddenly veered off the highway. It was when it dawned on me, this will end up being among the worst true hitchhiking horror stories. Without warning, he took an exit I didn't recognize, leading us down a narrow, dark road surrounded on both sides by thick forest. The highway lights disappeared behind us, and all that remained was the dim beam of the car's headlights cutting through the dark. "Hey," I said, my voice uneasy, "this isn't the way to the interstate." He didn't look at me. Instead, he smirked and muttered, "I'm gonna take you into these here woods and have fun with you." Everything in me froze. Panic erupted in my chest. I reached for the door handle without thinking, desperate to escape, but when I pulled it, the handle spun uselessly in my hand. It didn't catch. It didn't open. I tried again, more frantically this time, but it was the same. The mechanism had either been tampered with or broken. It was intentional. The driver let out a low, horrible laugh. "You ain't going nowhere," he said, as calm as if we were discussing the weather. Fear overtook every part of me. My body started trembling violently. I pleaded, sobbing now, trying to reason with him. I told him I wouldn't tell anyone. That I just wanted to go home. I swore I wouldn't say a word. I begged. He didn't even glance at me. He just kept driving deeper into the woods, ignoring every tear, every cry. "Just looking for a good spot," he said finally, eyes scanning the trees, voice casual, like he was talking about picking a place for a picnic. Then, something strange happened. I felt a sudden, unexpected warmth between my legs. At first, I thought I had lost control and wet myself from fear, but when I looked down, I realized the truth. I had started bleeding, heavily and all at once. It was my period, but it had come out of nowhere, completely unprovoked by anything physical. Some primal part of my body must have responded to the danger with a sudden surge of hormones. At the time, I didn't understand it, but I knew I had to use it. I turned to him, desperate and shaking, and showed him what was happening. The effect was instant. His face contorted into a grimace of disgust, and he recoiled as if I'd suddenly become repulsive. His demeanor changed in an instant. The sick anticipation in his expression vanished. Without a word, he let his foot off the gas, bringing the car to a slow crawl. Then he stopped completely. He turned to me, his face cold and hard. "Get out," he barked. I didn't need to be told twice. My hand found the lock, and this time, thank God, it worked. I threw the door open and stumbled out into the night. But before I could get away, he leaned out the window and hissed, "If you tell anyone, I'll find you. I'll finish what I started." Then he sped off, tires spitting gravel, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there for a moment, frozen in place, convinced he would circle back. I imagined him pulling out a gun. I imagined hearing a shot and never waking up again. But nothing came. Just silence and the eerie rustling of wine through the trees. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, just deeper into the forest, as far away from the road as I could get. Eventually, I crouched behind a thick tree trunk, trying to make myself small, hidden. I stayed there for what felt like forever, waiting, shaking, until the sound of another vehicle broke through the quiet. I peeked out, terrified it might be him returning. But instead, I saw a delivery truck, one of those early morning bread trucks, rumbling slowly down the road. I stepped out cautiously, waving my arms, hoping the driver would stop. He did. He was an older man, round face and kind eyes, and the moment he saw me, he knew something was wrong. He asked no questions, just helped me into the truck, gave me a blanket from the seat, and drove straight to the nearest police station. I gave my report. I told them everything. I didn't have a name, but I described the car, the man, the road. They listened. They filed the report. I left that station shaken but grateful to be alive. Years passed. Life moved on, or pretended to. That night lived in my bones, in the quiet moments, in every car ride I took afterward. And then, 6 years later, something happened that ripped the wound wide open again. I was at home, flipping channels, when I stumbled upon a documentary on HBO, Inside the Mind of a Serial Killer. It was just background noise, until I heard a voice. My stomach dropped. I looked at the screen, and there he was. It was him. He was older now, thinner, wearing prison orange. But I knew that voice. That face. He was being interviewed in prison, recounting his crimes with a cold, haunting calm. He spoke about picking up women alone. About taking them into the woods. About the thrill of the hunt. It was him, no doubt in my mind. I never caught his name. I don't care. I'll never forget the face, and I'll never forget the voice. In therapy years later, I learned something that still sends chills down my spine: women can spontaneously menstruate under extreme emotional stress. It's a documented physiological reaction. My body's desperate, primal response may have been the one thing that saved me. I often wonder what would have happened if it hadn't. Back when I was hitchhiking more regularly, I developed a bit of a personal rule: stick with truckers whenever possible. As someone who traveled light and moved often, it felt like a safer bet. There's a level of accountability in that world that you don't find with random drivers in cars. Truckers have rig numbers, company affiliations, logbooks. You can take down the truck number or snap a photo, text someone what truck you're in. It's not perfect, and there are still risks, especially if you're not a guy like I am, but something about it gave me peace of mind. Plus, most of them had those cozy little sleeping quarters with a TV in the back. It gave their cabs a strange homey feel, like a moving bunker with snacks and static-filled reruns of old shows. For this to be among hitchhiking horror stories, I will base it on a trip west that started like many others. I was heading out of Winnipeg, taking a slow route toward British Columbia. But this time, I wasn't alone. I had 2 friends with me, both women, who I was introducing to the art of train hopping and the thrill, and occasional terror, of hitchhiking. We were somewhere outside Field, BC, thumbing rides along a stretch of winding road framed by mountain passes and trees that seemed to lean in just a little too close. It was a clear day, the kind that feels harmless, almost friendly. Cars passed, some slowing, most not. Then a small sedan buzzed past, going west. Nothing out of the ordinary. But not long after, we saw what we were sure was the same car coming back in the opposite direction. It passed us again, slower this time, and pulled over. We hesitated. He was coming from the wrong direction, which meant he must have turned around to get to us. That set off a quiet alarm in the back of my mind. Hitchhiking was always a gamble, but U-turns? That was the kind of move you paid attention to. He rolled down the window, smiled too wide, and said he was headed toward Fort McMurray but had just come from Salmon Arm. "Hop in," he said cheerfully, like we were old friends. Something in his tone made my stomach turn a little. Still, we got in. His car was immaculate, unsettlingly so. No trash, no crumbs, not even the familiar smell of fast food or stale coffee. Just sterile, scentless air. We tried to shrug it off. Some people are just clean freaks, right? But then we glanced at the trunk as we loaded in our backpacks and saw something even stranger: piles of blankets and pillows wrapped tightly in plastic, stacked with surgical precision. Maybe he's just extremely organized, I told myself. Or travels a lot and likes to be prepared. As we drove, he kept glancing in the rearview mirror, eyes darting back and forth between the road and my two friends in the back seat. His attention lingered on them just a beat too long. Then he turned to me with a grin that didn't reach his eyes and said, "There's a surprise under your seat." My pulse quickened. I reached down slowly and pulled out a small cardboard box. Inside were dozens of smooth stones, maybe 30 or 40, all painted with bright letters that read, "BC Girls Rock." At first, we were just confused. Then deeply uncomfortable. Who keeps a box of painted rocks specifically meant for women in their car? He said they were gifts. For the girls, he added, smiling in a way that felt more like a warning than a gesture of kindness. We were somewhere past Malacca when things took a turn for the worse. He started talking about how we had to see the real British Columbia, how he knew a spot, secluded, peaceful, off the map. At first, it sounded like a misguided attempt at being hospitable. But then he actually turned off the highway and started down a narrow, forested road. He said it would only take a few minutes. That we'd love it. That was the moment every cell in my body screamed to get out. I looked at my friends. They were pale, eyes wide. No one said anything at first. We didn't want to escalate things. But we all knew we might not walk away from this. That's when I grabbed the knife I kept tucked into my boot. I don't even remember pulling it out. 1 second I was gripping the seat. The next, I was holding it in my lap, hands trembling. I must have dissociated, just locked up, staring forward with a weapon in hand, because my friend started lightly smacking my shoulder, whispering urgently, trying to keep me present. We didn't know what he was planning, but we knew we had to get out. By some miracle, we made it to Salmon Arm without him stopping again. As soon as the town came into view, he pulled into the lot of a post office. We didn't wait. The second the tires touched gravel, we bolted, doors open, bags half-dragged, no words exchanged. We just ran. We spotted an RCMP cruiser parked nearby. Relief flooded through us. We made our way to the officer and told him everything. That we'd just gotten out of a car with a man who gave us serious cause for concern. That he might be targeting women on the road. That his behavior was calculated, bizarre, and potentially dangerous. I gave the officer the man's name, the make and model of the car, even partial plates. I asked him if he could please record it somewhere. Maybe flag it. He looked at us blankly and said, "Hitchhiking's illegal in British Columbia." That was it. He didn't take the info. Didn't write anything down. Instead, he told us we could be charged for hitchhiking, as if we were the ones creating danger on those roads. It was like trying to report a fire, only to be handed a fine for jaywalking. I was stunned. Furious. As we turned to walk away, I muttered, not even caring if he heard me, "No wonder so many women go missing out here." And we kept walking. Shaken, but alive. A lot of people think the danger in hitchhiking lies in the cars that pick you up. And sometimes, that's true, but sometimes, the bigger danger is knowing that if something does go wrong, no one's coming to help you. For more terrifying hitchhiking horror stories, please subscribe to our channel. Also, like our videos. It encourages us to deliver more. There was a time in my life when hitchhiking was second nature. I had done it enough to know the risks, but I liked the freedom, the unpredictability of it. On one particular day, though, that unpredictability nearly cost me everything. I was traveling through Pennsylvania, trying to make my way to Ohio. The sky had cracked open that morning, unleashing a relentless downpour. The roads were slick and empty, and the kind of cold that seeps through your clothes had settled in. I was wearing shorts and a short-sleeved shirt, bad planning, I know. The day before had been warm and dry, and I'd packed light without checking the forecast. So, there I was, soaked to the bone, shivering by the roadside, thumbing for a ride and hoping someone would stop before I turned into a popsicle. Finally, a car pulled over. It was a modest sedan with a female driver and 3 other women already inside. That alone felt like a small stroke of luck. Female drivers were rare in hitchhiking, and they usually felt safer. One of the women leaned out the window and asked where I was headed. "Ohio," I said. "But anywhere near the state border is fine." As I climbed into the car, I noticed something that set off a quiet alarm in my head. One of the passengers in the back had a government-issued ankle monitor, like the kind worn by someone on parole or house arrest. I didn't want to make assumptions, but I definitely noted it. It told me there might be more going on here than I realized. The driver smiled and said, "We just need to stop for gas." We pulled into a quiet little station on the outskirts of town. The kind with one old pump, no lights, and a flickering sign that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. The driver got out and started fueling up. I stayed seated, grateful to be warm and dry for even a few minutes. Then she popped the trunk. At first, I thought she was just checking something, maybe shifting around bags or getting supplies. But then I heard voices, hers, and a man's. Except I hadn't seen any men. The guy's voice was strained, panicked. "Let go of me, you creep," he shouted. And then, gunshots. Sharp, unmistakable. The sound jolted me in my seat. I froze, stunned. The other women? They didn't even blink. They just sat there calmly, gazing out the windows as if this was all perfectly routine. The trunk slammed shut a moment later. The driver returned to the pump, hung it up, and got back in the car like she had just bought snacks at a corner store. No one said a word. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I stayed silent, too afraid to speak. As we pulled away from the gas station, I dared a glance back. And there he was, a man lying on the pavement, bleeding, barely moving. The rain had already started washing away the blood, but it was unmistakable. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in the car with 4 women who seemed entirely unfazed by what had just happened. Either they had done this before, or they simply didn't care. We drove in silence for a while before the driver casually announced that she had some business to take care of. She veered off the main road and onto a shoulder near a dense forest. Without hesitation, all 4 women got out. Once again, the trunk popped open. This time, I saw everything. They pulled out a shovel and a large black bag. The bag was moving. Something, or someone, inside was still alive. It writhed slightly, just enough to be noticeable. They didn't even hesitate. They picked it up and, along with the shovel, disappeared into the woods. I sat alone in the car, barely breathing. I didn't know whether to run or stay. I kept replaying what I'd seen, trying to understand how I'd ended up in a situation like this. The minutes crawled by. Every sound from the forest made me flinch. They were gone for 2 hours. When they returned, they were quiet, composed. Not a single leaf out of place on their clothes. They climbed back into the car, and the journey continued as if nothing had happened. At that point, I was convinced I wouldn't be getting out of this alive. I stopped trying to make sense of anything and just focused on staying calm. My eyes darted to the door handles, checking if they were locked. I quietly tested the window controls. My mind was already running through possible escape scenarios. But then came the final twist. We turned down a narrow dirt road that led deep into the woods. The trees pressed in on either side, the sunlight nearly gone now, casting long shadows across the path. The car slowed to a stop, and the driver killed the engine. The silence was deafening. She turned around in her seat and looked me directly in the eyes. "You're next," she said flatly. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't even wait for her to reach for anything. I flung the door open and bolted. My feet pounded against the wet dirt, heart racing, lungs burning. I didn't look back. I didn't care where I was going, I just ran. By some miracle, I made it to a road. I was near the state border. I flagged down a car, this time, a taxi. I nearly collapsed into the seat. The driver looked at me with concern, but I didn't offer much explanation. Just told him where I needed to go. I made it to my destination that day, but I was changed. Whatever youthful trust one still had in the road, in people, in random luck, it vanished. From that point on, I arranged for cabs. I didn't care how much it cost or how far I had to go. That ride through Pennsylvania had taught me more about danger than I'd ever wanted to know. To this day, I don't know what those women were involved in. I don't know who the man at the gas station was, or what was in the moving bag. But I do know this, I came within inches of being a part of something dark and unspeakable. And I got away, just barely. Thanks for watching this far. If you love creepy true hitchhiking horror stories, then you are in the right channel. Please subscribe so that you do not miss any of our hitchhiking horror stories.